Hi friends, and welcome back into my studio. If you are new here, my name is Tammy Ernest and I am a Longarm quilter, and here on my channel I like to share customer finishes as well as my own personal projects. So this week is an exciting week. Our first group of quilters comes to stay at the Alverson house. I am super excited. It's been a couple very late nights to get all of the final details put together, but they will be arriving soon and I am so excited. So the website is up. I have been adding some new photos as we have finished up everything here around the Alverson house. So the website is alversonhouse.com. I have linked that down below. You can check out all the pictures, and I want to welcome you. If you have a group of quilters that loves to get together, this would be a great destination. Up to 14 can stay at the Alverson house. That doesn't mean you have to bring 14. But you rent the entire facility. The sewing room is super large. We've put design walls all around. You have 3 ironing stations, 2 cutting stations, and every quilter gets their own 6-foot table with an aught light and a power station. So you'll have plenty of plug-ins and great workspace to work at. Plus the bedrooms, I'm just loving how the bedrooms have come together. We have 2 living room areas, a small dining room, a large dining room, a large kitchen. There are so many places to spread out, and it'll be just a great weekend. And the best thing, quilt store 10 minutes down the road, and you don't want to miss that. So I hope you'll check out the website, alversonhouse.com. I have linked that down below. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email through that website, and I can answer your questions there, but I am super excited. So I don't have any personal sewing done this week. Can you imagine? Grandbaby born last week, and then with all the details over the weekend of finishing up the Alverson house, and I've not gotten any personal sewing done, but I am super excited to get back to that because I feel like now that this project is up and running, then I will have some more personal time back again. So I failed to mention that next week Daniel will be home on spring break. He is bringing some cameras home from school so that we can film a walkthrough video. So next week, be watching for that. It may take, he'll be home to film it. It may take us a little bit to get it edited and up, but within the next couple weeks, we will have a final walkthrough video here of the Alverson house. I know many of you have been waiting for that, and so that will be up very soon. I have posted a couple videos within the last week since my last regular video about a couple products that I have tested. One was a serger from Vever, and I am starting to serge the edges of my Minky and to see if I can cut down on some of the fluff and the extra stuff that just fills the air when you're working with Minky. So check out that video. I've also been using titanium rotary cutting blades from the Fabric Hut, and so you'll want to check out that video as well. So I hope you'll look at those 2 new products that I have been using here in my studio. And how about we move on to customer quilts today? The next 3 quilts come from Terry. This first one is called Dewdrops, and this one was a kit from the Fat Quarter Shop. And the fabric line is Honeybloom by 3 Sisters. Now, it was originally as a kit. It is now no longer a kit, but just a pattern. But you can see from the pattern front that they used the same fabrics that are used on the pattern front are also in this one. This one does say that it is Fat 1/8 and Fat Quarter friendly. It does come in 4 different sizes. The smallest size is a wall hanging 22 by 26. Then you have a small lap, a large lap 54 by 64, which is the size that Terry made, and then a twin size 67 by 79. And yeah, so the pattern, as you can see, are longer blocks. They're rectangle blocks. If you can see, here's a blue one, here's a gray one, here's a yellow one, and they are offset just by half, which means at the bottom of the pattern you have some blocks that are just blocks at the end. And that little bit of a block here at the end then offsets the pattern just enough You can see this block goes all the way down to the bottom of the quilt, and then here we just have that little fill in, and then that makes the blocks just a little bit off, not off, you know what I mean, a little, they're nested that way. Okay, so the block is a rectangle. The center part of it is just a solid piece of fabric, and then we have a square and a square with a little bit of fabric on that side. On this end of the block, we have a square and a square with a little bit of piece of fabric on that side, and so that the white square and the squares are on opposite sides of the block, and then we have that with all of them. So this Honeybloom fabric is grays. It's almost the gray. It's a grayish brown. So in here, to me, it looks a little more brown, but here it looks a little more gray, and that's probably because it's closer to the other gray prints, and it makes it feel, this one makes it feel more gray. This one tends to look a little more brown to me. But grays, blues, yellows, very light, bluish, not a sage, because it's not really a green, it's more of a blue. But just a very pretty palette, a very soft, romantic palette, I guess is what I would say. Then around the outside edge, we do have a white border. This is a tone on tone, so it has just the tiniest little sprig of a fern there in that. And then the backing is just so soft. Just, I love this. Just very, again, just very romantic, just soft and feminine, a little bit of a flower, just very light, a little bit of a blue with yellow or greenish in the center of it, very pretty. That shows off the pantograph very nicely. This pantograph is espresso, and let me show you the printout of that one. Espresso, you've seen me use it quite a bit. This is one of those staple pantographs. I think this works so well on so many quilts. It adds a very nice softness, a very classy feel as well. So if you're doing maybe reproduction quilts, if you're doing older quilt tops, I just love the spiral in this one. Very tight spirals. You can see how tight they are. Very skinny, I guess I want to say. Very skinny spirals. And this one is they do cross over, the lines cross over themselves as they come back out, and that's what creates that ribbon effect. The spiral has a very tight point at the end of them. All of them are that way. This one even has a little bit of a loop in this part of the pantograph, and then you have the spirals. One little paisley on this one. This one does have a pretty deep zigzag pattern to it, and that is nice because then your pantographs nest into each other. So you can see this is the line from above. Here is, see how deep this goes, and then the line from the row below it would then come in around that. And so you can create that just cohesiveness all the way down your quilt by shrinking up those rows. The amount of distance in between the bottom of this row and the top of this one is very similar to the amount of distance that you have in between these spirals. So very, very pretty. This one just keeps things soft, or makes a quilt feel soft. So while the fabrics of this one are very soft and dainty and feminine, the quilt itself is very straight and angular. So by doing a very soft pantograph, we are keeping it soft. Now this quilt, I could see this one being done in more childish prints and more youthful prints. This would make a great quilt for that too, but I would not use this same pantograph if I was doing this in, I mean, if you were doing it in soft nursery fabrics, this pantograph could work. If I was doing this one if the fabrics of this one were more primary colors, very bright and playful, I wouldn't use this one. This pantograph, I may go more of a geometric type of shape. That would fit more with the fabric. So this pattern is very versatile in what it can do, I feel like. And the pantograph choice is very dependent first on who it's intended for, but also on the fabric line that is chosen, because choosing a very feminine, soft fabric line makes me think that the pantograph needs to be very soft and feminine. If my fabric choices on this one were much more primary or playful, trucks or, you know, whatever. I'm just thinking, you know, very playful, youthful fabrics, then I would tend to choose something that is more geometric or something like that, and not a soft pantograph. So very versatile pattern. I think this would be a good one to pick up and get a hold of. And so very pretty Terry. Let's move on to her second one. Terry's second quilt is called Flourish, and this is actually a Jolly Bar pattern that is in Jolly Bar Book Volume 3. So what a Jolly Bar is the Fat Quarter Shop does their own in-house cutting of 5-inch by 10-inch squares, rectangles, that are then Jolly Bars. That's what they call them. So this brown print right here, this has a white easy corner triangle on it, but if you had the full piece, then that would be a 5 by 10, and they call that a Jolly Bar. Anytime you buy a Jolly Bar from the Fat Quarter Shop, it's done by designer. So each of your designers would have their fabric line done in a Jolly Bar, and then they'll also create a pattern. So when you buy a Jolly Bar, you also get a pattern that goes along with that, so that you can make the pattern with the fabrics. But then over time, they collect those patterns from those Jolly Bars, put those into books, and that's what your volumes are. So this is from Volume 3. I do believe they're up to like Volume 4 or 5 at this point. But Volume 3 would have this Flourish pattern in it. The fabric line of this is Maple Island. That is from Holly Taylor. And so a very fall feel. Some of your fabrics have very distinct leaves and fall feel, some sunflowers, and then others are more just more texture, I guess. Not really texture, but more just complementary fabrics. So this one just has little dashes in it, just a little light bit of florals in there. Some of these fabrics are solids, like the borders here. We have a brown solid, and then we have a very rusty red solid. The whites you're seeing in here are solids, and I'm sure those are Bella solids. A lot of times with your fabric lines, at least on the Fat Quarter Shop, and maybe other shops do this as well, but they will suggest the colors, the solid colors that go along with that fabric line. So you can see the leaves, the very fall looking designs to this one, the sunflowers, and then just very subtle berry ones in that one. This red and this brown are more of a mottled type of color. Very pretty, very pretty. So what is happening with this pattern, we have one of the Jolly Bar square rectangles right here with an easy corner triangle, fairly large, but easy corner triangle. Here, this one, we have a Jolly Bar, easy corner triangle. Here we have a Jolly Bar, easy corner triangle, and here we have one. So then when you put those together, you're getting that secondary pattern of that diamond shape, the white and the diamond shape. So that is your Jolly Bar. These others are just squares, and all you're doing that is cutting the Jolly Bar in half. The design on the back, or the fabric on the back, is a solid. This is a tan color, probably a Bella solid as well. Works very nicely with the front. I like that she went lighter on the back. With this quilt, I think it would have felt very heavy to do one of these darker prints on the back. Another floral on the back would have been nice, but I like the lightness of the backing fabric. I think it complements the front very nicely. This pantograph is called Obsidian. I chose this one because I thought it felt like wind, but not the traditional side-to-side wind. This one has a little bit more of an S shape, a little bit more of an elongated wind feel, and to me it just felt kind of like the leaves are just blowing around, kind of little swirls up and down. Now Obsidian is a pantograph that is done by Natalie Gorman. Originally I purchased this from Urban Elements. Now Natalie Gorman has since is now affiliated with OESD. Now, if you are buying pantographs off OESD, they have two different websites. One is quilting.oesd.com or something like that. I'll link it down below. But that is where you find pantographs for your digital long arm. If you are on the OESD site, those are embroidery patterns from what I'm understanding. So make sure you're purchasing the correct one for what you're needing. Now, Natalie Gorman is now affiliated with them, so a lot of her pantographs are now over on that quilting.oesd site. I did not see Obsidian, so maybe she just has not redone this one. I do feel like that the pantographs that were on Urban Elements that she's now taken over to OESD, they're tweaked just a little bit. It's not the exact same as what, at least in a couple that I saw, like the Knit 1 Purl 2, it's very similar to the one I have, but it's just a little bit different. So I'm sure she had to tweak them a little bit to be able to use them again. I'm just guessing, I really don't know. But Obsidian I was not able to find. So if you wanted to use something similar, any type of a breeze or any pantograph that's kind of side to side, you could always orient your quilt the other way, because this really has more of a breeze type of look if you're doing it that direction. But I like this Obsidian. I thought it went nicely with the leaf pattern. This is the Omni Cream color. That blended better with the fabrics on the front and then doesn't stand out on the back at all with that tan color. So the size of this quilt is 61 by 78. And again, that is Flourish from Jolly Bar book number 3. Terry's third quilt measures 90 by 90. This is called Magic Garden, and this was a block of the month done by Missouri Star Quilt Company. And I will link this down below. I don't know if this is still available, but I'll at least direct you to their site so that you can check it out. The fabric line on this is Strawberry Lemonade. That is a Sherri and Chelsi line. I really like this quilt. This is one of those, again, when I am quilting, I am only seeing 20 inches of the entire quilt as I'm stitching it on the long arm, only seeing about 20 inches all the way across. So when I lay out a pattern like this, and then I get to see the whole thing, and it's just like, oh wow, that is so cool. I don't always get to see that until I actually lay it out for pictures. But this one is done. Your center block is a very large star. This has the oranges and the reds in there. All the blocks that radiate out from that are then the darker green. And then you move into lighter green. So it's the same thing all the way around, okay? So we have ginghams on the 4 sides. We have the lighter green on the 4 corners. And then the entire border is done with quilt blocks all the way around. Reds in the corners, oranges, then that little bit of a melon color. Those 3 colors are the same that is used in the center of the quilt. And then we have another green that is on the bottom. This is on all 4 sides of the quilt, and then repeating the same thing on the rest of it. Now, are those the same blocks? Yes. So every side has 2 of these melon color blocks. They have 2 of these orange gingham blocks on every side. Every corner has the red block, and then that red is also the same that's in the center of this star. All of the white fabric that you're seeing, again, is a white print with colored circles on it, if you've seen the Strawberry Lemonade line. And what I love, again, and I've mentioned this recently, is that a lot of times we use white tone-on tones or cream tone-on tones, but it's great to use these colored ones too. So you can see this fabric. See how it has all the colors in it? But reading it from a distance, it looks white. And then when you get in closer, you get to see all the colors in there as well. I need to do this more with my own quilts. I tend to go, keep those bolts of white on white and cream on cream, and I've encouraged you to do that, to keep bolts of those colors on hand so that you can start a new quilt project. We have a fat quarter bundle, or we have a layer cake, or we have charm squares or something like that. We find a pattern, but then we don't have enough of the background fabric is needed. So having some bolts of just neutral colors, but even neutrals that have some color in them. And I think this is really fun because from a distance it reads as a white. You've got a good contrast between the backing fabric, the background fabric, and then the other colors that you're using in the blocks. As long as you have a good contrast there, then your blocks are really going to stand up, even if these do have some color in them. So I like that background print. And this is a very large quilt, 90 by 90, as I mentioned. This is also part of that line, but it is not, oh, it is on the front. I was going to say it's not on the front, but there it is. It's right there around the center star there. So this is also from that line. A nice pink melon color flower. Very pretty. Very, very pretty. All right, for the pantograph on this one, again, Terry said that I could do whatever I wanted. And so just kind of keeping with that floral theme, but I kind of went with a little bit more of a modern pantograph, meaning that it's not, by modern pantograph, I'm kind of mentioning it's not your typical meander style, okay? I feel like anything that is more meander or just kind of swirls around is more of a traditional, not traditional, but it's what we've done in quilting for a long time. I feel like the newer pantographs, what I would say would be a bit more modern, are done with tighter quilting, and they're done with usually a lot more straighter lines. So while this is floral, it is still very straight, and I think that tends towards a modern look. So with this one, because I had floral fabrics, but I felt like the layout and just some of the blocks, there was, it just felt a little bit more modern to me. I don't know. It would have been very pretty with an espresso or something like that as well, but I just thought this would be cute. So this is Valencia Twist. This is done by the Quilting Mill. Now, in the past, I've always linked you to Barbie's Etsy site. She now has her own website. So I will begin switching over a lot of my, when I'm using a link of hers, you know, I will send it to her website so that you can check out that. But this is very pretty. So it's done on this wave. Now it's very tight. You can see, now I again would leave just a little bit of a space. I do not try to have my pantograph, the point of this one, touch the circle there. I leave just a little bit of space, and overall you wouldn't be able to see that in the quilting anyway. And so the wave right here, and then that flower sits on top of the wave, and you can see how it stitches. I can't remember in the stitch out. There's a little bit of overstitching if I remember right. And that's the other thing I noticed about Barbie's website is she will list, when you look at the pantograph, she will list the default size, height, and width. It also tells you whether there's any backtracking or overstitching. And there was something, oh, and if there's any precise lineups. And so a lot of good information is on there. So this one she does list as precise lineups because you have that point right there. It's easier if you leave just a little bit of a gap and don't try to touch that, and give yourself a little bit of room. And the overall design, you're not going to see, you're not going to notice that little bit of a gap. But a very, very fun design. So let me show you that on the quilt. I did use Omni Natural White thread. The fabrics are very bright and white there. So you can see that pantograph, how it just stitches out. You've got that wave, and then you have that 4-petaled flower, a little button in the middle, and you can kind of see that spacing. I actually have this one upside down from what the pantograph is, because you can see the pantograph, the wave is on the bottom, and I can see in my stitching here the wave is on the top. So I have this opposite. I would have stitched this with it the other direction, but the quilt doesn't matter. It's the same whichever way you're looking at it, but I can just tell from the pantograph that this wave is on the top, and on the printout it's on the bottom. So, but you can see just a little bit of a gap right there. Maybe you can see that. That's just because I leave a little bit of a space in between my rows and not try to actually touch it up. So the height of this one is about 4 inches. It's probably about 4 inches, the height of that one. Very pretty. Really like that. Valencia Twist. And that is in the Omni Natural White thread, and that is Terry's quilt. I have 4 beautiful quilts from Glenda to share with you, and this first one is Pieceful Baskets. You might have seen this one several times. I've done quite a few of these, and this is a great way to compare different pantographs. So I would go back and look at different episodes, and maybe at some point in my newsletter I will compare the different quilts that I've done and all of the different pantographs that have gone on, that I've put on each one, and so you can kind of see how a quilt changes depending on the pantograph that you choose. Pieceful Baskets was a quilt along that Fat Quarter Shop did through the Sew Sampler box. This finished in March of 2025. And so I'm starting to get them in as people are finishing them. So each month you received the pattern for the block in your Sew Sampler box. There was the option of buying a kit at the very beginning of it. This is using Shoreline fabrics from Camille Roskelley. So if you buy the kit right from the beginning, then you do get the finishing instructions right at the very beginning of the quilt along. Otherwise, you have to wait till the very last box, which is March of whatever year the quilt along finishes, and then you get the finishing instructions. But you could also do this in your favorite fabrics. It doesn't have to be in the Shoreline. It's beautiful in this one. It's beautiful in other fabric lines if you've seen people choose that. And what I like also is that when Fat Quarter Shop starts one of these quilt-alongs in the Sew Sampler box, usually a month or so into, maybe a couple months into the quilt-along, they will post a PDF, free PDF that gives you conversions to other fabric lines. Usually they wait until the kit is just about gone, and then they will post that, say, you know, if you want to use Lori Holt line, or if you want to use a Primitive Gatherings line, then they will give you the SKUs that would look good. They color it in different ways and then provide that, and I think that's a great way. So if you don't want to use the kit that is available, then just wait just a tad bit, and then you will see a PDF come up that then allows you to convert. So you've seen the current one that's going on, and how I've changed it to the fabric line Things Above instead of using the Summertime fabric line by Camille Roskelley. Some years, this one, I still have my blocks to put together. I have all the blocks done, I just haven't finished the sashing part. So some years I buy the kit, other years I choose my own fabrics, and this time I've chosen my own fabrics, but it's a fun thing to do. Just every month you get that block. Now, this is different from Designer Mystery. Now, if you joined Fat Quarter Shop's Designer Mystery quilt-alongs, I believe there's a new one starting here in June, perhaps. With that one, when you sign up for that, you are getting the block. This is as far as I know. I've not done one of the Designer Mysteries, but the way I understand that runs is you're getting the block and the fabric each month when you sign up for that one. And that one, each block is designed by a different designer, where this one is all designed by one person, and it all fits together very nicely. This one, Glenda has done just as the finishing instructions showed. So the last time you saw one of these, if I'm in order with my videos here, the last one that I showed of this one, Mary had added borders around her quilt to make it even larger. And Glenda has finished hers with the called for finishing instructions. So hers finishes at 66 by 86. So you have these nice big blocks. These finish, they may have been 18, 20 inch blocks, something like that. They are not set on point, even though it looks like it. When you are finishing this, when you do the block, you're actually creating the center portion first, and then you're adding the setting triangles on all 4 sides of that block, and then it makes it square so that when you're putting it in the quilt, it is square in the quilt. It's set as a grid fashion. And this one, what I love about this one is the sashing. The sashing is done with a white background with a blue polka dot, where the background fabric of the blocks is done with the white polka dot. But my favorite part is the easy corner triangles on the end of each piece of sashing, both vertical and horizontal, and then the cornerstone blocks are these square in a square blocks, so that when you put the whole thing together, you do get this star pattern right in the intersection of all of those sashing pieces, and I really like this one. I feel like this fabric is different than the one I showed you of Mary's. I'm kind of thinking Mary's was the light blue. it's been a few days since I filmed that one, so I can't quite remember, but I'm just kind of feeling that that one had the light blue here. So I like the dark blue. The light blue is very pretty as well. I like that people change it up to what they like. That I just love that. I love a good pattern, but I also like to see different personalities come out as you're creating your quilt. And even with one that many people have done the called for fabrics and that kind of thing, but adding borders or changing the cornerstones or whatever, I just really like that you make it your own. So let me show you the borders of this one. Those sashing pieces go all the way around to the edge. Now, in order to finish the star in the corner, they have you do a skinny white, it would be a border, but you've got some piece blocks in that border so that when you join it with the rest of the quilt, the sashing, then you finish out that star in the corners. So I did trim this up so that she won't lose any of her points. When you trim it up even with the quilt, then it does leave your 1/4 inch for your star points there. So very cute, very cute. So it's finishing all those stars all the way around the quilt. The backing fabric is the blueprint from Shoreline. Very, very pretty. And then for the pantograph, let me show you this one. Glenda chose Feathers and Swirls, a very classy looking pantograph. Like the swirls, it's got a nice backbone to the feather, nothing too fancy. I mean, that feather, the feather actually is only on one side. If you notice, here's the backbone running down. The feather's only on one side and then it switches to the other side. You have some nice spirals. Kind of chunky, you know, not too tight. I like that they're nice and open. A little bit at the corner of that spiral, it opens up just a little bit more, so it's kind of chunky at the end of that spiral. Echoes a little bit as the spiral comes around on this side. Then they've put a feather on the backbone of that spiral, a little spiral that pops out of the feather at the top, and then it works back. And actually, yeah, I'm looking at this. Oh, no. Okay, so you're coming down. Let me follow this pattern. So it starts over here. You're doing your spiral. It does the feather motif. Oh, wait a minute. It does this part of the spiral. It does the feather on the back. That spiral comes back around, finishes that spiral, echoes this side of the spiral, does a spiral here, and then you're doing... Oh, I'm doing it backwards. You would start over here. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you'd start on the left-hand side of your machine. You're doing a spiral first. I'm like, how are they doing those feathers upside down? That would be hard. It's not. You're doing it the other direction. So you're starting over here, then the backbone of the spiral. You're doing feathers on that side, feather on this side, doing your spirals, coming up here, doing your feather here, working back down, does some echoing and a spiral, and then you're doing that back down. And then when you repeat that design, now notice it's a pretty boxy print, but then your start point matches up with that one and you start right into it again. And this over here shows you it repeated. I like that My Creative Stitches does this, where they show you the one repeat, they show you the, one design, but then they show it to you repeated several times so you can see what it looks like all together, how it all nests together. So it looks like it's running up and down, but that is built into the pantograph. So it runs up and then runs down, connects to the next one, runs up and runs down. So a very nice design. So you could turn this if you wanted, not that you turn the pantograph, you turn your quilt. But if you wanted it the other direction like this, you would turn your quilt so that the top and the bottom are left to right, and then it would stitch out and look like this when you oriented your quilt back up the straight way. So I did it this direction, so it looks like this. Did it not too tight. I don't remember the actual size, but let me pull this in so you can see. This one didn't need to be really tight. I liked the more traditional, I guess, and that the spirals are nice and open, the feathers were nice and open. I mean, it gives good coverage, good texture, but not too tight that it was. I think the tighter you go with your design, the more modern it looks. The more open, not always, I mean, there's a good medium sweet spot. I think this is kind of in that sweet spot that gives it more of a traditional look. If you can see, the feather right here, I think it's just very pretty. I like the shape of these feathers. They're just a nice classic looking feather shape on the back of that spiral. This is the Omni Natural White thread. Beautiful quilt. Peaceful baskets. Great job, Glenda. Glenda's second quilt actually comes from a free pattern. This is called Layer Cake Links, and obviously by the name, you know, it uses a layer cake, and this is what the pattern looks like. So this pattern finishes 56 by 63, and Glenda says hers measures 63 by 69, so she must have made it just a tad bit bigger, maybe adding one more row and one more column to make it just a little bit larger. So it does use one print layer cake, 36, or one solid layer cake, 36 of those. So a layer cake is 10-inch squares. This is a pre-cut that you can buy. Most fabric manufacturers will create some call it, I think Moda is the one that calls it a layer cake. Others of it will call it something else, 10-inch stacker or something like that. But it's 10-inch squares. So you can use your pre-cuts for this. And that's why they create these patterns, is so that we don't just leave those pre-cuts sitting on our shelf, but instead we actually use them. And so this is called a shortcut quilt. Doesn't take a whole lot of time to make. It uses 36 10-inch squares, so if you just want to do it in your fabric way, you can. If you've got a layer cake that you're needing to use up, this would be a great way to use it as well. The fabric in this one is Judie Rothermel, her line called I Love Purple. And then the backing fabric, I don't know if this is a layer cake. I would, unless it's a layer cake that's all one color, which you can get, but this could be just yardage that you have, your background fabric. You could be just using yardage and you're cutting it into 10-inch squares. I would read your pattern to see if you need to cut it in 10-inch squares. Obviously, this is going to be written so that when you pull out your 10-inch squares, then it's going to tell you what to do with that. So it's not, I mean, I guess I could look real quick. Let me see. So the solid, it says from the 10-inch square, you're cutting a 4-inch square, a 2 1/4 by 8 inch, and then 2 1/4 by 4.5 inches. So it's not that you need to cut that background fabric into 10-inch squares and then do this. If you're using yardage, then start with 4.5 inches. You cut your squares that you need for that. It says you're making 36 blocks. So for the solid, you need 36 4.5-inch squares. So if you're using yardage, I would not cut that into 10-inch squares. Instead, I would cut your 4.5-inch strips, subcut that so you're getting your 36 4.5-inch squares. Then it says you need the next two sizes that you're needing for the background fabric is 2 1/4. And so I would cut 2 1/4-inch strips and then subcut it into the 8-inch rectangles and the 4.5-inch rectangles, and it tells you how many you need of those. So don't feel like you have to have 10-inch squares. If you've got a stacker or a layer cake in the 10-inch squares that you're wanting to use, and then you pick out a background fabric, then no need to cut that background fabric into 10-inch squares and then subcut it into this. Go ahead and look at your pattern and see, okay, I just need 4.5-inch strips, subcut that, 2 1/4-inch strips, and subcut that to get the yardage that you need for the background print. Very cute, very cute. Whatever fabric, this pattern works well for these reproduction fabrics. It would work well for a children's quilt, for team colors. You know, this would be a great one as well. Lots of choices with this fabric line, or with this pattern that you could do. So free pattern, I'll link that down below. All right, size of this one, like I mentioned, 63 by 69. And you can grab the pattern to see how those blocks are put together. Let me show you the background fabric on this one. So all the next 3 quilts that I'm going to show you of Glenda's all have Minky on the back. She sent these colors to me because none of these 3 colors do I have in my studio. If I see, now I had this quilt on the Longarm one day when another client came to drop off some quilts, and she said, "Oh, lavender Minky, I love it." So maybe lavender is a color that you would like me to carry. Maybe it's something that would be popular. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see whether there's enough of an interest that I can add that to my shop. At some point here, I'll put on my website all the different Minky colors that I have, because it's getting enough, and I'm getting a lot of clients that are just purchasing Minky here instead of having it ordered somewhere else and shipped to me, or from paying the shipping to send it. You know, once you buy it, they're just purchasing it from me. So at some point I need to put those on my website. Not that you purchase them on the website, but you tell me you're able to see the colors that I offer, and then you can put that on your order form so that you know exactly what colors I have and which ones you'd like. So this is the lavender Minky. I do carry the 90-inch wide. It's the easiest for wide backing, for backings, you know, no need to piece it. Now, I hear from new long armors all the time, or even though, you know, those that are doing long arming for themselves and they're scared to do Minky. Don't be scared of it. I was telling my Quilt Circle membership the other day, I really feel that the bad rap from Minky comes from those who are trying to do Minky on a domestic machine. That has got to be horrible because Minky is so floppy. And it's like a wet noodle. I mean, it's just flopping all over the place. Plus, it's slick. And so to try to be maneuvering that through your domestic machine, I absolutely understand why that's a bear. On a long arm, it's really not that difficult. The biggest problem with Minky, well, one, you've got the shedding. As long as you've got a good vacuum, you're fine with that. The biggest struggle with Minky, I guess I would say, is the stretch. You're going to have stretch one way or the other. I personally like to load selvages on the bars of my long arm. There is less stretch in those selvages, and also I know those selvages are straight. There are times, depending on the size of the quilt, that you will need to load the cut edge on the bars. At that point, you have to make sure that that cut edge is straight, okay? If not, when you load it on a quilt, so say I have a cut edge and it's straight, and then it's got a little bit of a hump in the middle, and then it's straight, which happens sometimes if you're cutting a big long line. You know, you get a little bit wonky, and you can, when you open it up, you'll have a cut. This is the cut edge, and it's straight, and then it kind of goes up, or it's straight, and then it dips down, okay? If I just load that cut edge on the long arm, I'm going to have, so let's say it's this way. Here's the cut edge, and then I've got this hump, and then the cut edge, okay? If I load that on the long arm with that cut edge, and I load this cut edge, even though it's got the hump in it, if I load that on the long arm, then in this point of the quilt, it's going to drag right there. It's going to droop underneath. Now, it's an easy fix. All you would do is when you were loading it, say this part's on the, you know, this part is loaded, the cut edge right at the, either pinning, if you're pinning, or, you know, with the red snappers, which is what I do, or your magnets, however you're loading it. When you get to that hump, you're going to have to load, you're going to have to make it so it's even all the way across. So your hump you may have some Minky stick out above the top of your red snappers or above your pins, because you want this to be a horizontal line all the way across that cut edge, okay? So just make sure when you're loading your backing that you're not having any droop underneath, because what will happen is as you're stitching, then that extra fabric will get pressed, you know, it'll get moved and it'll get pressed, and you'll end up with a crease on the back as you're stitching. So personally, I like to load the selvage edge because I know that's already straight, okay? I know that they say, well, if you do that, then the stretch, it's going to bounce back. I have never, ever seen that. I understand when you use a sample size and you stretch it this direction or that, and then when you let it go back, but I'm not doing that. I'm stitching it, you know, and it's all stitched. So I've not seen the stretch bounce back. That being said, don't overstretch it. When you're loading the selvages on there, I feel like it's a little easier. You do have some stretch, but you don't want to stretch it to the point that it's out of proportion. So you're loading the selvages along there. If you're loading the cut edge, you're going to deal with the stretch there. That's where the biggest stretch is. So again, just don't stretch it too much on your long arm when you are loading it onto the bars. If you load selvages onto the bars, you've got the cut edge down the side, and you will have to deal with that stretch down the side. You'll see on the side, it'll droop a little bit more. That's where I use my side leaders, not to pull it so tight that it's out of proportion, but just to keep it nice and straight and stitch along so that underneath the quilt, I'm not having any big droopage that's going to get pressed over and creases result. So honestly, I feel like once the minky is on the long arm, as long as you're checking underneath and you're keeping your side leaders so that you don't have too much of a droop, it's really not hard. You're not moving that minky at all. Your machine is moving over that minky. And what I like is that you've got a bigger bullseye is what I say. So instead of 2 layers of cotton and a batting in between, and I always use batting in between, if you don't, then your quilt just, it maintains that just huge floppy feel. It has no structure to it. So by adding the batting in there, then it gives it some structure, and it makes it more manageable, honestly. But instead of if I have a cotton batting or backing, and so I have 2 layers of cotton with batting in the middle, my bullseye that I'm trying to hit for my tension is much smaller. With the minky, it's got a higher pile. The threads are really soaked into there. It's just a little thicker. And so then with the minky and the batting and then cotton, I've got a little bit bigger of a bullseye. It makes tension just a little bit easier. I love the texture it creates on the back. So just to recap that, I feel like the caution with minky is you're going to deal with stretch. You're either going to deal with it on the sides if you load the selvages, or you're going to deal with it when you load the cut edge on your bars. You're going to deal with stretch one way or the other. Once it's on there, just check it on the back each time you rotate it. Make sure you don't have any big dips and things that are going to get pressed over, and I think you'll really like it. So don't be afraid of it. Just try it. Maybe you don't try it with your favorite quilt first. Maybe it needs to be something that is a practice of some sort, but I think you'll really enjoy it. And I do carry the 90-inch wide. Unless you're doing a lot of baby quilts, I really don't feel like that 60-inch is quite enough. I feel like the 90-inch, you're really able to do a lot of quilts with that. So this is the lavender minky that she put on the back of this quilt. This pantograph, minky just shows off pantographs so nicely. This pantograph is called Cottonwood. Now Cottonwood has the big cotton bowls on it. So you've got 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let me see which direction. So you'd be coming this way, it looks like. So down, the cotton balls are more face down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it travels over here and does 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me show you the print out of this one. And this just shows you one cotton ball. One that's facing upwards. Then the one next to it would be this direction, upside down. And that makes it nice because then your quilt is visible from either direction. It's just adding a lot of nice texture to it, a little bit of roundness. I like this one for reproduction fabrics especially. I think it has a little bit of a classic looking feel to it. I don't know why. To me, when I see this, it just makes me think old time a little bit, and so I like this on reproduction fabrics. I think it's really nice. The thread on this one is the Omni cream color. The background fabric that you're seeing is a creamier color, and even with cream in the bobbin, you're not seeing color on the back. The only way you would see your colored thread on the back is if you were using a brown, or if I was using a deep dark purple, you would see that, but you wouldn't see it all the time. because your fibers are laying different directions. Okay, if they're all standing up, they're standing up like this. But when you rub it one way, the fibers are going that way. When you rub it the other way, the fibers are going the other way. And that's why you get that difference in the nap, or you're getting that difference in color. So if I use a very dark colored thread on the back that's much darker than the minky itself, then you're going to have spots where you would see the dark thread and spots where you didn't, depending on which way those fibers are laying. I prefer just to use a neutral thread. Usually whatever's on the front is what I use on the back. And then that, you're just really getting the texture on the back. Now, notice also with this one, this is a lighter color minky. It is not the same color as on the front, but I do not see, let me get in close. If I looked really close, I am not seeing a lot of pop throughs. Let me see what color, this binding or batting. The batting is Quilter's Dream 80/20. I am not seeing a lot of pop throughs. If there are pop throughs from the back though, it's a similar tone. Does that make sense? The tone of this one is a little more muted. It's not a high contrast to the front. When you have a high contrast minky on the back and then the front, sometimes those pop throughs of the minky coming up to the top are very, very noticeable. For this one, even though the minky is a totally different color, I mean, we still have purples, but it's not the same purples. I think you would have noticed it more if we would have had a very dark purple like this. That contrast between the back and the front would have been much, much more intense, and you might have seen those pop throughs. In just looking at this, if there are any, it really blends in nicely. And honestly, I'm not seeing a whole lot. So, makes me wonder that 80/20, the Quilter's Dream 80/20. I've got some other quilts coming up in the near future that they're wanting a high contrast on the back. And I'm going to try the 80/20 Quilter's Dream and see if that's the trick. I'm going to do some testing and see. Anyway, that's Glenda's second quilt. This is Layer Cake Links, free pattern. You can grab it for yourself. This is Glenda's third quilt, and this also is a free pattern. This one is called Garden Moss. This one is a free pattern by Wyndham. This was done by Wendy Shepherd. So cute. The pattern says 62 by 62, and that is what Glenda's measures. She said she used this uses 5-inch squares, I believe. Let me see. Oh, I don't have that. It's still printing. I think it uses 5-inch squares. I'm still printing that part of it, and I need to go ahead and film. So anyway, Glenda used a 5x5 pack, which would be a charm pack if you're using Moda Fabrics, and she used the colorway. This is called Color Weave. This is done by Benartex, and very fun. All the different colors. All the different colors of the rainbow. Obviously you could do it in whatever fabrics you want. Again, a 5-inch stacker if you have that, or a charm pack if you have that, but also this would be a great stash buster. Okay, so just using your fabrics that you have in your stash. Now the color weave, it kind of has a very similar look to the thatched prints that Robin Pickens has done. When I got in really close, this white fabric, it looks very similar to the color weave or to thatch. It's like little apartment houses or like a cityscape. It's really cute. And I don't know, it's almost like, oh, I wish it was in a little bit of a color so that you could see it, because it's very faint, but it's so fun. It's a very, very fun print. So very cute. You can see the there's another print out of what the quilt looks like. It does have a border around the edge, and she has done this nice, I think this is like a mum type of print around the outside edge. This one and the next one are both for grandchildren, and so they have chosen the fabrics and the colors that they wanted. And what else can I tell you about this one? And she says the backing is unknown. It came from her stash. It is super cute. This one measures 62 by 62, I believe I mentioned. And she also did a pillow for this one. And let me show you that one. Here is the pillow. So just using 9 of those blocks and then adding the border around the outside edge. We did the same pantograph on this as we did on the quilt. And that pantograph is called Sprawl. This is a pattern by the Longarm League, and here's what this one looks like. Now, you'll notice right away, look at this pantograph. So a very similar block as you're seeing on the quilt, but notice this one, the bigger part, the open part, is towards the bottom, where on this quilt, the bigger part, or what I would say, you know, what kind of mimics the pantograph, is at the top. So what I did with this one is I loaded this quilt the other direction so that this part was actually faced towards the bottom, so that when I stitched this pantograph out, they had a very similar look. This part was at the bottom. Again, I can't switch the pantograph to go like this. Maybe there's a way that you could, switching the start and end. To be honest, I don't know how to do that. There may be a way, but to me the easier way is just to flip this quilt the other direction and to then stitch it out like this, and then it's oriented the way that I want. Did use the Omni natural white thread on this one. Obviously the background fabric is a white background, so that's why I use that. The backing on this one is also a minky. This is kind of an aqua, a light aqua, aquamarine type of color. It's actually called Ice, and but it's kind of got an aqua, more of a greenish tint than a bluish tint to me. So just a very pale, almost a sea foam type of green, maybe a little lighter than that, but it is called Ice. And again, do you like that color? It's a beautiful color. I don't know that I could carry this, if there would be enough of an interest to carry this color. I don't know. But it's very cute. And so the pantograph here, the size that it was when it pulled into Pro Stitcher is the size that I left it. It's really only about 2.5 inches tall, is that. Now, I do offset the rows by half, and that's the way this pantograph shows here as well, because when you pull it into Pro Stitcher, it's going to stack this one. This row is going to be stacked right underneath it, and I don't want it stacked like that. I offset the rows by half. On Pro Stitcher, how you do that is if I'm on horizontal, I'm changing the horizontal, and you go to wrap. If you'll notice in the top left corner of your screen, it'll say basic or it'll say wrap. When you hit on wrap, and I'm in the horizontal ribbon over here on the right hand side, when I switch to wrap, it will give you an option of changing the row, and I'll just hit half, and it automatically does it by half and layers it right in that area. And then I decrease my spacing in between, because it's going to have it pretty far apart, and I decrease the spacing. To do that, you have to go back to basic, decrease the spacing between the horizontal rows so that it comes up nicely. Notice that the space between these two rows is very similar to the space within the row, within this pantograph right here. And that's what I did on this quilt, if you can see. Try to make it very similar, so it's just a nice cohesive design all the way down the quilt. Very cute. Very fun. Beautiful quilt, and like I said, free pattern as well. Great stash buster. Just again, you just need a background fabric that you could use with whatever colorways you're wanting to do. So beautiful quilt. They just keep getting better, don't they? This is Glenda's 4th quilt, and this one is a pattern called Northwest. This is done by Heck Yes Sewing Company. That's Heather Yeck. Here's a copy of the front of that pattern. And it says it comes in mini, which is 28 by 28, so you could do that one as a wall hanging, or throw size, twin size, or bed size, which is 102 by 102. So lots of options there. And then, so the mini shows you two different ways, because it's two different blocks here. Is it two different blocks? Okay. Kind of. All right, here's one block. And the second mini uses this block, and then it looks like it sets it in a setting very similar to that. So you'll go to the link for this and you'll be able to see what I mean. It shows you two ways to do the mini, but one of them is this block here. This block that you're seeing. The other one is taking this block, or you can see it better here, taking this block and setting it inside of this. And that's the two settings for the mini. Like I said, the mini finishes at 28 by 28. Throw size is 9 of these blocks with the sashing in between. So this is really sashing, and this strip is your sashing. These are your blocks, 1, 2, 3, and then you have this large sashing in between, which is really creating that diagonal effect, those secondary patterns that are popping up. The twin is a 3 by 4, and let me see, Glenda's measures, hers is square. So hers is 76 by 76, which is the throw size. But then there's a twin size that's 76 by 102, so it's this wide, but you're adding more rows in it, or the bed size, which is 102 by 102, which ends up being 4 squares across and 4 squares down. So great pattern. So you'll notice the fabric line in this one shows it in greens. Glenda said she chose 2 different pinks, and I love her color placement. It's very pretty. Then 2 different pink colors. These are both grunge fabrics, 2 shades of pink, and then a white on white that she had in her stash. And the grunges have a little bit of color gradation in them, so you can see just a tad bit of orange in places. And that's done with the fabrics. It is not done in the piecing. It's done in just cutting those fabrics, and then you get those variegations in the fabric line. So intense quilt, and I think it did say an intermediate level. Maybe it wasn't this one. Skill level 3 out of 5. So a higher end of the medium. So, but a beautiful quilt, just very intricate, very neat designs. Love the large sashing and the whole big block that's creating those cornerstones. All right, the minky on the back of this one. This is called Coral. Now, when I looked up Coral online, to me it had a very pink look. And this one, while it is pink, Coral is a much better description of it. It's kind of a rosy pink color, and even the fabrics on the front, I mean, this matches so well. And Glenda had this one sent to me, and so she really didn't get to look at these two together, and she said, do you think they're going to match? And they really look good together, a really nice complement to each other. But when you look online, this may look a little pink, and you may not quite like that look of it, but it is much more of a rosy pink color, and Coral is a good name for it. So the pantograph on this one, you can see, is called Floral Felicity. Let me pull this in. This is the Omni Natural White thread on the front. Floral Felicity. This is so fun. Oh, I love to finish a quilt, and when I finish a quilt, I drape it down before I remove it off the long arm. I always drape it down, check the back, make sure everything looks good. And when you pull this off and you see that all the texture on the minky, it's just, what do they call that, a dopamine rush or something? You know, it's like, wow, I just love it. So this is Floral Felicity. It does have some spirals, pretty tight spirals that come to some points. It does have the feather on the back of the spiral, and then it also has some florals in there as well. And I thought this went really well with the pink, the coral look of the quilt. I thought this one went really nice. Let me show you the printout. This is what Floral Felicity looks like. So you have that nice tight spiral. It comes in a couple of times and then comes to a nice tight point, and then as it spins back out, it has the feather shape, just 3 of those on the back side of that spiral. But then you have a couple of 5-petaled flowers, and that has a few leaves off of those, and just a beautiful. I think it softened this quilt. I thought with the pink, kind of made it feel a little softer, but the lines of the quilt were very straight, very rigid, and I thought the pantograph then kind of softened that quilt back up again. So very, very pretty. Now normally I buy my patterns from the Quilting Mill on Etsy, but I did notice today that she has her own website now. So you might check her out there. That's Barbie Mills of the Quilting Mill. Just beautiful. Glenda, all 4 of these quilts were just a joy to work on. Can't wait for you to get them back and for your grandkids to see them. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll be watching for our Alverson House final tour. That sounded funny, that like we're on tour. No, I hope you'll be watching for our video coming out where I do a walkthrough of the completed Alverson House, let's say it that way. And I hope you'll check out the website down below. If you're in need of long arm quilting services, my information is also in the drop-down box below. And I hope you'll drop me an email and we can work together. So until next week, every quilt is worth finishing. We'll see you then.